Today's story of yesteryear has many parallels to today's situation. When students ask, why do we need to learn history, perhaps today's story is a really good example. It was on March 28 in 1915 that the woman known as Typhoid Mary awoke in the cottage where she would spend the rest of her life, which turned out to be 23 more years. She was in quarantine in a cottage on an island in the East River. Her name was Mary Mallon, and she was a large and fiery Irish-American woman in her early 40s. She had worked as a cook in and around New York City, and every household where she worked suffered an outbreak of typhoid fever. Typhoid is caused by a form of Salmonella bacteria, and is usually spread by contact with human or animal waste. It was common on battlefields, and it may have killed more than 200,000 soldiers during the war between the states. Typhoid is common in poor and unsanitary conditions, but it was rarely seen in the wealthy households like the ones where Mallon worked. The first known outbreak associated with Typhoid Mary occurred in 1900. She had been cooking for a family for about 2 weeks when they started to become ill. The same thing happened the following year when she took a series of jobs in and around New York City. She helped take care of the sick, not realizing that her presence was making even more people sick. Then in 1906, George Soper noticed this strange pattern of outbreaks in wealthy homes. He went to interview each of the families, and found that they had all hired the same cook, but she never left a forwarding address when she moved. He finally tracked her down after several cases in a Park Avenue penthouse, so he interviewed her. She didn't take it well, and swore at him, and threatened him with a meat cleaver when he asked her to provide a stool sample. He finally called in the police and had her arrested. Urine and stool samples were taken from Mallon by force, and doctors discovered that her gallbladder was shedding great numbers of typhoid bacteria. She admitted that she never washed her hands when cooking, but she didn't see the point, as she was healthy. One of her best dishes was ice cream with sliced raw fruit, which just made things worse, but she was otherwise so good at what she did, that families often took her with them on vacation, so that she could cook for them, and they could show off her skills. There is no record of how many friends died from her touring ice cream socials. No one had ever heard of a healthy carrier of typhoid, and she refused to believe that she was in any way sick. They wanted to take out her gallbladder, but she refused. They demanded that she give up cooking, and she refused to do that too. They confined her for a while, and put her to work as a laundress for the Riverside Hospital in 1910. Then, after she promised to give up cooking and only work as a laundress, she was released. It wasn't long before she changed her name to Mary Brown. For the next 5 years, she stayed one step ahead of the law, spreading disease and death in her wake, until they caught up with her again on Long Island. Authorities placed her in quarantine on North Brother Island for the rest of her life. She died of pneumonia 23 years later. This means that for 23 years, Mary could see the lights of the city, where she had spread the killer disease for a few decades. Mary never did understand why she was jailed, because all the while she was feeling fine. She knew that families and children loved her and hugged on her. She just did not get it. Typhoid Mary was a good woman. She did care about the families for whom she worked, and she did her job well. She just did not know the damage that she was doing. Don't we all know someone who is like this? Be encouraging and do your part to slow the spread of bad things.